why don't you kick us away, Kate? Kate is a spirit baby pioneer. She wrote What All Spirit Babies Want Their Mamas to Know. When I was trying for my son, 11 years ago now, I found Kate on her website, Love from Baby, and I devoured all of her content because I wanted to know that I wasn't crazy, that I was thinking about, I've got this baby communicating with me. Am I going crazy? Is this real? Is this not real? And I found Kate and I devoured all of her content and it was amazing. So, Kate, you being the pioneer of spirit babies, and I think you maybe even coined the term New Earth Mama, which I see getting thrown around now by spirit baby intuitives, but I never heard anyone say it before you. So what is a New Earth Mama?
A New Earth Mama. I don't know if I coined it, but I'll take credit.
I think you did. I never heard anyone else talk about it. Walter Mackian certainly never talked about it. None of the other spirit baby intuitives I saw at the time never called it a New Earth Mama. So I'm going to give you that claim.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take it. Well, the New Earth Mama. How to sum all that up? But first, I want to answer the question. Am I a New Earth Mama? If you're watching this, am I a New Earth Mama? Well, that is such a simple answer because if you're watching this, yes, you are, or you wouldn't be drawn to this information. But a New Earth Mama is one who chose not to just to be a mother to a baby. You're not just choosing to be a mother to a baby. It's not that straightforward. You're choosing to bring in a new earth baby, a high frequency baby that's karma free, baggage free, coming in to build the new earth. And what is that? That's humans of a upgraded consciousness. And it sounds all flighty, but I mean, we've been talking about this stuff for years. It's real. It's very real. And I have 3 new earth children. And, I can talk in later times of how I parented them, but how I see the differences in them. But the difference between a new earth mama and just being a mama is you're going to raise your own consciousness to meet the frequency of these high consciousness babies. But one of the key features of being a new earth mama, as you know, Belle, is that the journey to motherhood is usually not straightforward. It's usually not, okay, I'm going to have a baby, let's do it. And then the next month you're pregnant. That's really not what it's like. And doing the work I did years and years ago, and I know the work you're continuing to do now, most of the mothers, if not all of them that come to us, have had challenges on the way to mothering. And what does that mean? That means it's taken them a long time to conceive. It means they've had miscarriages. I had 2 miscarriages before my son came for the 3rd and final time. And it means there's things even like stillbirth, or you've had to have abortions, or you've had these what I call initiations on the way to motherhood. And why does it have to be like that? Well, because we chose to be these fierce warrior mothers, and to do that, we've chosen a path of struggle because it opens our heart and it gives us these quantum leaps into a higher consciousness. Now that's the bad news, that we've suffered on the way to motherhood. But the good news is if you're watching this right now, it means that you're done with the struggle. You're gonna enter into the motherhood in a different way, a different path. So are you a new earth mama? You're watching this, yes. If you had difficulty conceiving or challenges on the way to motherhood, yes. And you're choosing to bring in a very high vibrational baby and to raise your own consciousness at the same time. Do you agree with that? Is that what you're thinking too?
I absolutely agree with it. But I do have one question. What if somebody's watching this that potentially doesn't have trouble conceiving, but they're also on this journey? What about those mothers? What do you think their growth period will be?
Oh, that is such a great question. You know what? That is such a great question. I'm so glad you brought it up. Because when I was doing the work years and years ago, I was working with what I would call the first wave. And you were part of that first wave. And this is so beautiful, the service that this first wave has done, because we paved this path through the pain, the heartbreak, the years it took to try to conceive, the miscarriages and stuff. And now the second wave coming up can have an easier path. So there are younger women now that are more spiritually open and may not have the difficulties that the first wave had, because we've paved the way. And you're welcome. Because it was a bitch, you know? And if you are one of the young people, and I do see that, you know, before I retired, I was seeing the younger mothers coming in more open, more aware, and they might not have that difficult path. But there is still work to be done to raise your consciousness and to communicate with your baby, to bring the baby in. So even if you don't have those very harsh challenges, there's still openings to be had. And maybe it won't be as rough or devastating because there is a path now where there wasn't one before.
I love
In
that.
your readings, are you seeing women that are not having as difficult time as what you and I had?
Yeah, I am definitely seeing that. And that's why I asked the question, because, you know, there are women that are coming through that are conceiving quite quickly. However, they are having challenges through pregnancy, through birth, and through mothering. So they're still having challenges, but they're not necessarily the challenges to conceive a baby.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I have found also in the readings I did in the past that if it was an easier path to pregnancy, the challenges were later on, perhaps as postpartum depression or something like that. So anyway, the work that we're doing can help overcome all of those challenges because we're not just tackling fertility and we're not just tackling mothering or birthing. We're tackling consciousness, and that changes everything.
So what would you say about, you know, we've talked about this before, you know, the old rules around fertility that you have to eat a certain way, be a certain way, do a certain thing to get pregnant. What would you say about that to mothers who are bringing in these new earth babies?
Oh boy, don't get me started, sister. But I do talk about this in my book because the old pregnancy advice is still the pregnancy advice that's being given right now. In fact, I am going to go out and just say the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, should be thrown out. And I say that loud and clear, and I don't care who pisses off. That book should be thrown to the curb because that book has been around a long time. And I happened to look through it when I was pregnant the first time in a bookstore. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, I'm shaking and I'm like, this is awful. This is instilling fear. This is giving you rules and limits. And anyway, that whole book epitomizes the old pregnancy advice. And unfortunately, I would say that's even stronger than ever because, you know, being told what to eat and how to move and how much to sleep, especially the eat part, you know, one of my missions here is to break down those limitations around food, especially if healthy or not healthy. As I've told my kids since they were born, before they can even talk, if it's eaten with joy, it's healthy. It's not what we think, it's not the food, it's what we think about the food. So if we're eating something in fear, then yeah, it's going to do things to our body that make us afraid. But you have to really, and it's about the pre-birth communication, it's about tuning into your inner wisdom and listening to what your body and your baby wants you to eat. And if it's chocolate one day, then it should be chocolate. And if it's salads, then it should be salads. If it's bacon, it should be bacon. But you are your own inner guru. Nothing out there can tell you what to do. And so I say with any pregnancy advice, throw it out and really just listen to the inner guru. And that's what our work is. It's not about telling you to do certain things a certain way. It's telling you how to listen to the inner wisdom that knows everything. And your baby does too. At this point, your baby can help you, just like a spirit guide. So the old pregnancy advice, I hate it. I hate it all. It pisses me off. And I think it should be thrown out so you can just listen to your inner voice.
And what would you say to someone who said potentially, I've had this question, so I'm curious to see what your answer would be. You've had no training as a fertility doctor or a fertility specialist. What makes you an expert?
I'm not an expert on anybody else. I'm an expert for me. And so what I want to do is help people. What I've always wanted to do is just help women understand that they're their own expert. So if you've been following me forever, so you know my story, but I was very guided to unassisted home birth with my first baby, which is something that was not on my radar. And for those who don't know what it means I had a home birth and I didn't have a doctor or a midwife. And a lot of people think that is irresponsible, stupid, crazy. And that's why I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't want that fear. All I knew was I was strongly being guided to do this. And I had to listen to it. Anytime I tried talking myself out of it, I felt this mourning deep within me. And I believe I had that experience to show me that we are totally self sustainable, that we can listen and are protected by our own divinity. And if we really, really closely listen to that voice inside and take the inspired steps, and you'll know what they are because they feel expansive, they feel right. If it feels like it makes you sick or afraid or constricted, then it's not your path. But I say all this because I don't tell everyone they should have unassisted home births. I absolutely don't believe that's something everybody should strive for. I think people should strive for the birth that they feel most comfortable with. And I am not an expert in anything except my own inner wisdom. And that's what our work teaches too, is to listen to the wisdom of your body, your baby, and your higher self. And there's a whole wealth of not just information, but inspiration and ways to totally change your consciousness and your life and your body and your fertility.
Mm. Yeah, I get messages all the time from people who were struggling to conceive, and they've done sessions with me, maybe several. I've gifted some of them my course because they couldn't afford it at the time. I don't believe that money is a reason why we shouldn't have access to this information, which is why we created our course, Quantum Conception 21-Day Jumpstart, for $37, because we really feel like everyone should have access to this information. And so anyway, I get messages all the time from people saying, oh my God, it's amazing. I'm finally pregnant after several years. Thank you so much for what you've done to me. I never could have done it without you. It was all you. And I always say to them, it wasn't me.
Right.
I didn't do this. You did this.
Right.
You were willing to open your heart to the possibility that your baby is communicating with you. You were willing to listen to your baby, and you were willing to follow that guidance from your baby. All Kate's ever done is open the doorway and show you what's possible.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I have so many thoughts going on in my head about that. But I never want the credit either, and our work is not about telling people how to do things and this is how you have to do it and this is a boop boop boop, this is how you do it. It's really about raising the consciousness of the person doing it so they can find their own way. And your baby, if you're watching this right now, has put you right in the path of this. So your baby is saying, Mama, here, I got something for you. We're going to meet soon. And this is how we're going to do it.
Exactly. And if I say something or Kate says something, let's say you have a session with us, let's say you're inside one of our courses and we say something to you and you're like, I don't think so. That doesn't resonate for me. Then you go with that. Don't give your power to us or anyone else. Okay. We're just offering information that is true and holy and correct for us. And we're offering you this information as a vibrational exchange of energy. And if it resonates, it resonates. And if something doesn't resonate, then you are the power, you are the sovereign authority of your own life, mind, body, and fertility journey. And that's what we want for you.
Absolutely. Which, that makes me want to circle back to what I said about the food too, because even though I do believe at a certain point of consciousness, food doesn't matter, I also believe along the path, food can matter. And so, if you're hearing that, okay, I just want to be vegetarian during this pregnancy, or I just want to be vegetarian, while I'm trying to conceive, then listen to that. Just don't stay stuck in it. It's not a have to, but it might be a stepping stone. Like I could only be a vegetarian for a portion of my second son's pregnancy. But I knew that was just a temporary stepping stone that I needed at the time, and not someplace I had to stay stuck. So if you had food allergies and you have to pay attention to something like that, then pay attention to it. But just because that's where you are right now doesn't mean that that's where you're going to be in the future. As your consciousness expands, you can allow more things in. And I also want to talk about just going back to not being a fertility specialist or a doctor. And as much as they may serve a portion of the population, their knowledge is limited. It's limited in the knowledge that they learned in school. It's limited by logic, by the intellect. It negates the whole energetic, spiritual aspect, which is the bigger part of reality, if you ask me. And it ignores intuition. It ignores all the power, really, that has to do with the woman herself. So if you can find a fertility specialist that encourages you to listen to your intuition, that's fantastic. And maybe we will find that more and more. But it really is, again, more about listening to your inner self. And talk about our work and how it supports the mission of these women. And your mission, again, is to raise your consciousness, to not only bring in these high vibrational babies, but to become the highest version of yourself. When you partake in our work, it's not going to change your fertility. So we're not saying this is your new fertility tool. But what it is going to do, it's going to change how you think. It's going to change, it's going to give you a paradigm shift. It's going to elevate your consciousness. And when that happens, when you elevate your consciousness and change the way you think, that changes your mind, which also in turn changes biology, which changes your fertility.
Yes.
And things that were impossible before become possible because you are expanding in your own limitlessness.
You know, I've had conversations with babies, and you know, it's very hard in a linear conversation to relay what a baby shares in a quantum experience when you're meeting them in the quantum field. But the consensus is this. I asked them, they talk about the evolution of consciousness and the evolution on the planet. And, you know, often illness and disease comes up. And I say, well, what cures cancer? And they all say the same thing: consciousness cures cancer, right? So
I just got chills.
This is what feeds into what you're saying. As our consciousness expands and evolves, our biology inside of our body shifts, and our awareness inside what's possible and what isn't possible shifts inside of us. So, you know, like even like we were talking about, let's say IVF, and you said how the doctors are limited. Many of them are. Yes, they are. And, you know, if we break it down into percentages, if you have a really healthy, let's say you have a same-sex couple who are wanting to conceive a baby, and, you know, they're 22 or 23 years old. So the woman goes in to have her eggs collected. They use a sperm donor that's got a perfectly healthy sperm sample, 100 million sperm. They collect the eggs, they collect the sperm. So really optimal environment for conceiving a baby. There's still only a 25% chance at full probability that these people will conceive. And this is because that's the 25% that science can control. It can't control the other 75% of what is happening.
Oh, that's a gorgeous way to put it. I love that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, you know, coming back to IVF specialists, you might be amazed to hear this, because I certainly was. I have connected with women all over the world that are having some extraordinary experiences with IVF clinics. And one woman in particular told me that her IVF clinic plays Mozart and beautiful music to the embryos when they're growing. They put this like repeat of music on. Some have like rainbow you know, lights on the windows so that the sun, some have crystals that are hanging over the embryos who are growing. And I just think this is a very transformative way for IVF to occur.
It is, and that is the perfect example of how our consciousness is raising on a mass level now. It is now starting to happen on a mass level. And so for these IVF clinics to be picking up on these things is just proof that our consciousness is expanding. That's gorgeous. Oh, that is absolutely gorgeous. I love that.
And I just want to come back to where we were before, like right at the start, because some people don't even know the answer to this question. I'd love to hear it from your point of view. What is the new Earth?
Oh, how to encapsulate that? Well, I can tell you it's a very, very, very different Earth than the one we're living in now. And she's how to encapsulate it. But I can tell you it is an Earth where humans are of a consciousness where we are limitless, we are fearless, we are not ruled by having to work for money, for lack. We're not wired for lack. You know what it is? It's a world without distortion. It's a world without slavery. Um, and I know most people know what that means. Most people say, I want to be free. I want to be free. What is the new earth? The new earth is one where we are free. And it's one where our family dynamics are based on joy and play and partnership. It's not, and I mean, we can bring the higher consciousness into what's going on right now, but in the future, it's not going to be everyone getting up to go to a job they hate and getting up to go to school that they hate and getting up to work for the man and to be brainwashed with information we don't care about anymore. It's And oh my God, really, it has to be its own topic because there's so much I could say about what the new earth is. What right now I can tell you is what it isn't. And it isn't one where we feel oppressed, repressed, restricted. It's one where you wake up in the morning and you cannot wait to be in your day because you get to be you and you get to celebrate everything that you want to do, whether it's emptying the dishwasher, you can't wait to empty the dishwasher. Whether it's, creating something that you love or talking to somebody or a business meeting with some sort of business that you love. Actually, Belle, what you and I are doing is part of the new earth because when you and I do work together, it is not work. It is never anything I dread. I was telling a friend of mine today, I get to talk to Belle tonight, because it's nothing but a joy. And so that is what the new earth is like. It's not and the old world is based on karma. It's based on balancing things. It's based on us being distorted and brainwashed and held into this very, very limited frequency. And the new earth is of an expanded frequency, and it feels so different, so different than what we are living now. Even in our highest days of joy, we don't understand what it's like to be in Christ consciousness all the time.
Mm.
And it's actually one where there won't be disease, where there won't be infertility, there won't be decay, there won't be death. And it sounds outrageous, but that's exactly the path that we've paved already. That consciousness is already here. And there's already quite a few on this earth that are living it, and they are lighting it up for the rest. And those that are watching right now, you're a part of it, and so is your baby. And the world is going to look very, very, very different in the next few decades than it looks right now.
That leads me into, I hear this a lot, right? I hear it a lot, and this little conversation we're going to have about this is for the women who are potentially being affected by this, women who want to bring a baby in, but they're hearing comments such as, why would you bring a baby into this world, into the
Yeah.
destruction of this world? It's you're cruel. Why would you want to bring a baby into this? What would you say to those kind of statements?
That you have to bring a baby into this. And you have to bring these high vibrational babies into this because the babies that are coming in now are a part of the new earth. They're not coming here to repeat the old lessons, the old karma, and the old baggage. They're not coming out here to play these power struggle dynamics. They're coming here to build the new earth. And, my kids are 18, 15, and almost 12. And the best thing I can say about them, because I don't have the sports to brag about because we homeschooled, we did unschooling. I don't have college degrees to brag about. They're not going off to Cornell or anything. What I have to brag about is that they are their own people. They know who they are. They're comfortable with who they are. And my oldest son said to me the other day, "You raised me to be free." And I said, "Oh, God, that is just like one of the best things that you can say to me." Um, they're amazing in ways that I can't really articulate because mostly we grade people by, what they're getting in school and the sports they're playing, what college they're going to, and how much money they're making. I don't have those bragging rights, and I don't care for them because I see who they are, and they are the new earth. They're free. They're free.
Yeah, there's so much dogma in parenting, and I want to speak to this even in the consciousness movement. People wanting to do better, people wanting to feed their kids better. It's actually almost gone the other way. It's sickly,
Yes.
like, oh my God, you can't give your kids sugar. Oh my God, you can't do that. It's actually horrific. And my son is 3.5 years old, and he just doesn't want to go to the potty. He wants to wear a nappy, and I'm not going to force him out of a. People go, oh my God, you have to make him. That's disgusting. And it's like, he just doesn't want to. And
Yeah.
people think that I'm being a bad parent for like letting him choose when he wants to toilet train. Like, it's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, all three of mine were 5 years old before they were toilet trained. I didn't have to worry about sending them to preschool or kindergarten. You're supposed to be toilet trained by that. I didn't have to worry about that, so I didn't worry about that. And like you said, I was not interested in coercing him or forcing him. And of course, they're not going to be 11 years old and still in diapers. They'll do it when they're ready. They'll do it when they're ready, and it'll happen like that. That's the difference. When we let them follow their own pace, when they're ready, it happens like that.
Yeah,
I
like,
could say the same thing about so many things, but that's probably, I don't know.
I'd say to my son, do you want to go to the potty today? He's like, no, thank you. Very politely, I was like, okay, yeah.
And that's not being a lazy parent. That's being a partner. It's being a partner. It's respecting their pace and their time.
And that can be hard to do because their pace might not be the same as what the collective says it should be.
Exactly. And let me tell you, now that I can say this about my kids at their ages, it's easier for me to look back and say, oh, I didn't screw them up. But, I was not following any of the norms. And a lot of the time I thought, what the hell am I doing here? And a lot of the time I didn't know what I was doing, but I also knew what I wasn't going to do. And that was the things that made me feel icky. I'm not going to do things to my kids that make me feel icky. So again, when you're learning to communicate with your baby and your higher self, I think one of the hugest carryovers is that you continue to listen to your children and your inner self when it comes to parenting. So communicating with your babies before birth just has a beautiful carryover into listening to them as you parent them. You're your parent, you're the partner as you're bringing them in, and you're the partner as you're parenting them as well.
This leads me into the next topic because you kind of went into it. It was interesting. So let's say you're communicating with your baby and you feel like you have a really strong bond and you're communicating and you're getting messages every day, and then you give birth and the baby is the opposite sex to what you were expecting. And then a lot of these women I spoke to, they think that they were crazy and they judge themselves and they think that the communications weren't real. What do you say to women who have that experience?
Well, I don't know nothing about that, except that it happened to me. So, as you know, and I talk about in my book, I had been communicating after my first two sons. I had been communicating with a spirit baby daughter for 3 years before she came. And I'm not going to go into the whole story right now, but when she came, he was a boy. And you know what? I knew I didn't get it wrong because the pre-birth communication was so strong. And even I remember I wrote this in my book. I had 7 friends who'd had dreams about my baby spirit girl. So she was real. And what I have to say about that is that my story is probably the same for most out there. And I was doing karmic clearing with this daughter who had been a daughter of mine in many, many lifetimes. And we had work to do. And I'll just lightly say that, in previous lifetimes, she'd been very sick and I had been caring for her, sacrificing myself to care for her. And so that's what she and I had been working out for 3 years. And all through my pregnancy, we were working out this. Of course, I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know this until afterwards, and it all came together. But we had karma we were clearing. And so at the end, it came to me, a few weeks after my my son, my third son was born, if she had come in at this time, she would have been sick again. But because we cleared that karma, she was able to not come in and be healthy, and she's taking care of us on other realms, as I know. And so people say, well, why couldn't she just come in healthy? And maybe this is something you've seen in some of your readings, but a lot of the times, if a baby is clearing karma, and you think you're going to have a baby, and then it turns out to be something, it could be the same baby, but they choose a different gender because that body will have less muscle memory of the distortion or the sickness. So that's one thing that could happen. But always communication is real. And if we end up with a different baby, it could be a different baby like mine was, or it could be a different gender, but it all has to do with the baby's choice, and it has to do with karmic clearing. It doesn't mean we did anything wrong. In fact, if you're communicating with your baby, you're taking the highest path. I know that ending up with my third magical son, and I honestly can't imagine having it any differently, was the highest path. And because I cleared this karma with my daughter in the other realms, there was no desire for her. I didn't feel like she was missing. And I know some women who have gender disappointment, it's because there's still work to be done with that spirit baby. So maybe there's still some karma that needs to be worked out and put to bed. But if there's still a pull to that baby, that means there's still some work that needs to be done. Anyway, that's what I found, that you're never getting it wrong. It just might be taking a different path than what we thought. But never doubt yourself. Even if it turns out differently, chances are it's turned out the highest way because of the work you've done. And if you end up with a different gender, you can also say, just please take my desire away for a baby boy or a baby girl. You can ask for the desire to be taken away. And it will be, if the work is done, it will be. I know that's really not what a lot of women want to hear, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. The gender disappointment and ending up with something, someone different than you thought, it's a real thing, but it also can be an incredibly beautiful thing that is exactly the way it should be.
I was communicating with my daughter for 8 whole years when my son decided to come through. However, I knew that, my son was coming to the foreground right at the end of the 8-year journey. And at the time, I was like, why would my daughter communicate for 8 whole years and then my son come through at the end? And that wasn't revealed to me until many years later, why that happened and why that was the case. So watch this space for what is coming in the future. That's a story all unto itself, which is far too quantum for most to get their head around. But
I am going to validate what you've said here, because I either had a dream or a vision of your daughter. I don't remember when this was, but one of the first things she said to me was, I was supposed to come first. And when I told you that, I didn't know your story at the time. I just knew that, she said, yeah, I was going to come first. And then, there was a little switcheroo there.
Well, as things unraveled and, my mum got terminal cancer and, she's consciously chose at the end of her life that she was going to come back as my daughter. And as that has evolved, and, I nursed my mum through death, and I was having, end of life journey with my mum and pre-birth communication at the same time, with her coming through as a future soul. What a quantum experience that is, and still one that is integrating to this day. But as my mum slowly starts to pull away energetically, I feel the presence of her as my daughter coming forth, which is a mind-bending experience, to say the least. But let's see how this unravels, because at the same time, while I have this urge to bring this daughter through, my son is incredibly, he's an intense little character to parent. And, the thought of having another baby while having my son at the same time is, I wonder if I can do it. I wonder if I can actually bring her through as well and be the best parent to my son. While at the same time going, well, maybe I just need a couple more years. Well, in a couple more years, I'll be 48 years old. So it's like,
yeah, but we know that doesn't mean anything anymore.
I know. And let's lead into that for a minute, because there's a lot of people thinking, oh, well, I'm 43, 44, 45. Why do you think age doesn't matter as much in the new earth that it did, in old texts or in the fertility dogma.
Well, geez, it used to be 30 was the age, the cutoff age years ago. If you're over 30, that's the age. But no, as our consciousness does expand, our biology changes. And I I know this sounds crazy. It doesn't sound crazy to me, but it sounds crazy to the masses. There's just going to be a time when we won't have cycles. There won't be cycles. We won't be subjected to periods, which frankly I cannot wait for. Um, and we will just be able to have what I call spontaneous ovulation. You partner with the baby, you decide when you're going to come in, spontaneous ovulation happens. That's how it will be in the new earth. Granted, it's going to take a while to get there, but we are seeing people do it here and there. The path is being paved for that. But age won't matter, because one of the things that we are overcoming in our biology and in our consciousness is death, disease, and decay. And people I know are saying, what do you mean we're overcoming death? We're overcoming death. You know what? That is not part of the original plan of our DNA. Everyone knows about the junk DNA. No, that's actually our original DNA. We're supposed to have these 12 strands of DNA. And even though it's in us, it's called junk DNA, and they think it's worthless, it's not. That is what gets connected as we raise our consciousness and change our biology. All this gets connected. And that's how we overcome the disease, the decay, and the death. And that's why it won't matter what age you are. In fact, a great example of this, if anyone wants to read something mind-bending, is a gorgeous book that is not religious, but totally metaphysical. It's called Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. It's a gorgeous book, and it talks about how she's 600 years old and having babies, and it's channeled information that happened, supposedly that's what happened back then, and that is also what we're headed for now. So age doesn't matter. I am going to be 52 this year, and I am still having regular periods. Even though I keep saying, okay, I don't want the periods anymore, but I also don't want to be pregnant, and I don't want menopause. So I'm saying no pregnancy, no menopause, no cycles. And I absolutely believe that is part of my role to, I tell people I'm doing that and they laugh. I'm like, well, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. And that's part of my role here, to lead that. And so, yeah, age doesn't matter. How many 50-year-olds have you seen getting pregnant?
Oh, so many. And not only 50-year-olds, I've had 60-year-olds, and now I've had one 70-year-old. So look, and look, they have a session with me, and like, I got to admit, even me, when they get on the video, I'm like, I'm wondering if they're the grandmother, and I can't help it, because it's just, but right. I've learned not to assume, and it's like, okay, so is it you wanting to call forth the baby? And every time it's never like the grandmother. And these women are going to extraordinary lengths to call forth these babies. You've got a woman in her 70s having to go to Estonia and all these like countries in Eastern Europe that don't have the rules around, IVF. But right. Talk about a way shower or a pioneer, someone in their 70s that A, believes they've got the energy to do it.
Right.
B, is called to bring forth this soul. And then all of the backlash they have to face from their friends, family, and community about bringing in a child at that age. And
right.
I just think it's extraordinary. I have no ill feelings whatsoever, because I know, because people say, oh, well, what if they die and they're not around to see the child? Well, A, the child has chosen that person as a parent, absolutely. And B, who are we to know how long a person's going to live? And none of us know the answer of how long we're going to be here for. So, right, we have to do what we feel called to do in any given moment.
Right, exactly. And I like that you call them a way shower, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're showing the way to get over the limited thinking. And that is the role and mission of a new earth mama. If you're watching this is your role. It's not only your desire to have a baby against impossible odds, it is your duty. It is your duty to show that what you've been told is impossible or difficult is not only possible, but yeah, you can do it with aplomb. You can do this. And this is the role, to overcome the distortions, the limits, and anything that holds us back. It's to expand in consciousness and just break through those barriers.
And it's just at 25, 30, maybe 40 years, I'm not sure what the exact number is, but sometime from now, everyone will be calling in their baby with conscious conception. Everyone will be having spirit baby communication. So this is still very new. This is still a very new concept, which some time from now, everyone will be doing it, and your baby will be able to say, my mama was one of the first. She was one of the first wavers or second wavers who was really doing this. People like Kate, even myself, Kate especially, were doing this when no one was talking about conscious conception. And when I was doing it, there was a few people that knew about it. It's becoming more common now in our community, right? It's still not common. It's still absolutely not common. In fact, the course that Kate and I created, I had a company in America to help me put that course together, some of the technical stuff. And the lady who helped me was, a multi-million-dollar business owner. She'd helped thousands of entrepreneurs to build their courses in their businesses. She actually said to me, people buy this stuff? Like, people actually do one-on-one sessions with you? I'm like, yeah, heaps of people. She's like, really? Now I've heard it all. Like, this was someone that had spoken to thousands and thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs, and she hadn't ever heard of it before. So, we really are at the forefront of a new paradigm of consciousness, and you, beautiful mama, who are bringing in these beautiful souls. Don't let anyone discredit or devalue the role of mother, the role of mothering. We've been brainwashed to think that we're exactly like men, that we can go to work and we can earn a job, and that we can be away from our kids and we can put our children in care all day to be raised by the system. No, that's not what's being called upon of a new earth mother. That's not to say you can't work. That's not to say you can't serve your community, but mother is your primary role. You wouldn't be watching this otherwise.
Yeah. And you know what? To go with that, it also means mothering ourselves as well. A lot of us weren't mothered the way, the highest way. And that was okay, because that set us on the path that we're supposed to be on. But when we are mothering these children in a higher way, we're also mothering ourselves in a higher way too. So yeah, earth mother, divine mother, that is our role. And it doesn't mean that's all we have to do. Look at you. I mean, and look at all we've done. We still have our passions, but we're also not slaves. We're not slaves to the consciousness that says, this is how you have to raise your children. This is where you have to put them. This is what you have to teach them. It's all about listening to the inner mother. Yeah, the inner mother.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm completely transparent in the fact that I work a little bit every day, because I don't go to a job. I don't leave the house. I'm not out of the house all day, but I work a couple of hours every day. Some days it's 3 or 4, some days it's 2. And I don't actually feel like I need holidays, and I don't feel like I need time off, because I love what I do, and it's just a part of my everyday life. And my son, he made me a little a Mother's Day card with his play group, and it had in there, what does your mama do for work? And I cracked up laughing when I saw it, because it was like, my mama circulates the money.
Woohoo! My mama breathes on the baby.
Hilarious. That's what mama does for work. She circulates money. And that is a beautiful thing, because that's what we're doing when we're serving humanity. Yes, we're taking an exchange of money, but it's a circulation, because think what money can do in the hands of the heart conscious, right?
No, exactly.
So when I have money, I'm choosing to invest it into businesses that are serving humanity, that are doing good things for humanity. So it is a circulation of money. So if you were to buy the course that Kate and I created, then you know in every cell of your being that your money keeps working for you when it leaves your hands, because then I use that money and I circulate it to businesses that are serving humanity. And this is how we uplift the evolution of consciousness, by choosing the conscious circulation of money. And I just thought it was hilarious that my 3-year-old son, he wrote it.
That's because they know, these younger ones know. And how you're talking about money is also part of the new earth. It's not going to be a power struggle or an energy sucking or a have and a have not. It's not going to be, well, if I take this, then someone else isn't going to have it. Or, oh, this is my money. No, this is my money. It's going to be circulation. It's going to be just it's a divine compensation. You know, there is no loss in the divine mind. So whatever you're giving away, of course, it all comes back to you. It all comes back to you. Have you ever really been without money? Has anyone really ever been without money who's watching this? It always comes back to you somehow. So yeah, your son's picking up on that higher.
Yeah,
That
and
higher
Kate and I, I loved Kate's work, and I said to Kate, I reached out to say, hey, I want to create this course, and I'd love to use your work because it's more relevant now than it was ever before. So, we collabed and created a couple of wonderful courses, and then Kate's course is there, the Divine Mother. Why don't you talk about that, Kate? The Divine Mother activation. What is that, and why would someone want to do it?
Oh, because it's just so yummy. I do say that the prerequisite is to read my book. You have to read the book first to get the full understanding. So I said that on my website, and that's what you did too. The Divine Mother activation I did in 2018, and that was when I was downloaded with the Divine Mind and shown and experienced how to overwrite the limited distorted thoughts, because most of the thoughts we have in our head, especially if they're limited or fearful, they're not actually our thoughts. They're the distortions of mass consciousness, of the brainwashing coming in. And yes, we're all brainwashed. It's not just a few who are brainwashed. We've all been brainwashed. That's part of the old world energy. So I was shown how to overwrite that brainwashing and the limited thinking with the divine mind. And that's when I was given the divine directive, make this course. This is the pinnacle of what you've been teaching. And it's a 30-day course, and it's what I call for the advanced initiate, those who have done our programs before and have the background and have the foundation, because it really does not just change your consciousness and your fertility. It changes your life. It changes the way you move in the world. And it improves relationships. So I'm not just saying this, because this is, a sales pitch. This is just what happens. Once you change your consciousness, everything else changes. So the Divine Mother activation takes the divine frequency and gives it to you and helps you become the Divine Mother. And it raises your frequency and makes your light grow brighter. And it brings in your baby, it brings in your baby. Eventually it brings in your baby.
I love that. So yeah, both Kate and I, we're completely on the same page, and we never want to, it's never a icky sales pitch with us. It's really like, if you listen to our chats, if you listen to this content, if you feel a resonance with the way we speak and the way we serve the spirit babies and the new earth mamas, you'll feel it in every cell of your being. It'll be like, oh yeah, I need to do that course. I want to do that course. I'm ready to meet my divine. I'm ready to meet my baby in the quantum field. If your soul says yes, then you can find us through my Instagram. It's Surf the Wild Woman, and you'll find it in the link in my bio. Sometimes none of the stories work because I'm so heavily censored, but you can always find me through the links in my bio on Instagram. On TikTok, Quantum Conception. If you are in Australia, if you are in America, Quantum Star Babies. I know I got to be cheeky. I got to have 2 different TikTok accounts.
Well, I want to back up. Why is Belle so heavily censored? I love that you're heavily censored. And why is she heavily censored? Because she is helping overcome the brainwashing. And the system doesn't want us to overcome the brainwashing, because then we become self-sustainable. We become self-nourishing. We become self-harmonious. And this is what Belle is doing. She's voicing her authentic voice, and the powers that be are afraid of that. And that's why you're censored. And that's why you should be believed.
They don't like it when we say, do not give your power away. Trust your almighty, all-knowing, sovereign self. They don't like it when we tell people to take their power back for themselves.
Right.
They don't like that. That single statement is enough to get me censored, to get Kate censored, to get anyone censored. And, I have had this dichotomy within me since the beginning of COVID, when I really started using my platform to speak out against the globalist agenda, which, you know, I don't do so much anymore because I'm choosing to focus on where we're going. I'm choosing to focus on
Right.
where we're going as a humanity. But sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
I can't help myself. And, you know, once I started using my platform to speak out, they began censoring me, and censoring me very heavily. And the dichotomy is, if I was just going to surf, you know, post fluffy pictures of babies, or, you know, surfing, or all of the things that I like to post without speaking about the hard stuff, I wouldn't be censored, and our business would probably be far more thriving. But at what cost?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And it's the censored people you want to be listening to. It really is. Oh, you said something that I wanted to back up, but I can't remember what it is. Oh, I can't remember, but all I know is I'm so glad you came along. And when I said on my website, my contract with the Spirit Babies is over, you know, I was just done. You know, with the Divine Mother activation in my book, that was all I could say about it anymore. My work was done. It was time for me to kind of just not just retire from work, but retire from the old ways of everything. And so when you piped up and said, I have a new contract with the Spirit Babies, I was so grateful, because not only did I have someone to pass women to, I had someone who speaks exactly the same language as I do, exactly the same language as I do. And I'm always so confident passing women over to you, because I say it would be like getting a reading from me. Belle's fantastic, and she's probably doing it better. So, Belle, I think you're fantastic, and I congratulate you for being censored.
I tell you what, sometimes I want to strangle myself when I spend all this time making this amazing post that I think's amazing.
It is. It just is. But wait, I remembered what I wanted to say, and I think it's a really important part. So, you say that you used to talk a lot more about the globalist agenda, but you want to focus on where we're going. And I think that's fantastic, because I really do think to become of an elevated consciousness and to get over the old world, we have to understand the old world. We have to understand what's been done to us, and what they're still trying to do to us, and why they're trying to stop us. I think you can understand that information without dwelling there. I think a lot of people, they go down the conspiracy theories, which most of them are true, and they get locked there. And when you get locked there, you can kind of become a victim of it. Oh, look at all they're doing to me, and look what, and this is why I can't do anything, because of them, because of them, because of them. But I think you need to know it so you can empower yourself to rise above it. And I know for me, understanding what the agenda was behind the old world and how we've been repressed and put in slavery, I found it incredibly empowering. And the fact that you're censored should make you feel incredibly empowered, because you are speaking truth. You are overcoming, and they don't want everybody to overcome. So, yeah, know about it, but don't live there. Because if you live there, you become a victim to it still. You become angry at it. So, yeah, know about it, be aware of it. I'm always aware of it, but I focus on where we're going, you know, and
Yeah,
that's,
it's you don't have to stay there. And in fact, even, you know, knowing about ascension and knowing about the evolution of consciousness, knowing that we're stepping into multidimensional reality, that can also be a distraction for something that's going on in
yes,
your body. And I'll give you an example of that. My mum was clearly having symptoms of terminal cancer. And I know that because she kept saying to me in the months leading up to her diagnosis, so, you know, what are essential symptoms feel like? Like, what are they, you know? And I said, well, Mum, what does it feel like for you? Because for me, ascension symptoms moved around. They don't stay in the same spot in my experience. But
yeah,
if you've got a feeling that there's something going on, go to the doctor, get it checked out. Sometimes you need blood work. Sometimes it's not the Schumann resonance going off its spike. Sometimes it's not, you know, the astrological chart. Sometimes you goddamn need blood work, right? So
yeah,
she was in denial. She's like, I'm just having ascension symptoms. But what was actually happening was that she had terminal kidney cancer, right? And by the time she found out, they said, you're going to die. There is nothing we can do for you. So don't be so distracted by the evolution that you're not feeling within.
right, right. You know what, Belle, that happened to a friend of mine as well, back in 2015. She was so caught up in the ascension symptoms. And, I was part of it. I'm like, oh yeah, that happened to me. But like you said, the ascension symptoms, they'll move around, they'll just because it's light coming into our body. So it doesn't stay in one place forever, it moves around. Yeah, but by the time she finally went to the doctor, yeah, she was given a death sentence, and she was dead, couple days later. So not
Yeah.
to scare anybody, but
No,
yeah, but
this
not
is the this is the truth. And I'm going to give you another example. I was having like a couple, like some really weird like pains in my pelvis, which were unusual. I had a really unusual menstruation. I've been menstruating for 30 years. I had a very unusual menstruation, and I thought, like, I don't know, I just felt like I needed to go. And I hadn't had a pap smear in since forever. I hadn't had anything, checked. And I went and had a pap smear. I went and had like a check, and it was absolutely nothing. I had a tiny little like cyst, a very tiny, benign little cyst. But I went and checked, and then I could totally put my mind at ease. It was like, okay, well, it's not that. I'm good, right? It obviously was some sort of energy shifting, whatever. But don't just discredit what we may be feeling and write it off as ascension. Again, not to scare anyone, but to really, again, trust your intuition.
Right, exactly. And it's a good thing you brought that up, because I know in the past, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this too, women would come to me and want to use the concept of limitlessness to avoid things they didn't want to have done, whether it was having to get things removed or get a surgery. They were trying to use limitlessness as a reason to avoid their fears. And I always would tell them, you can't you can't be in a place of limitlessness from a place of fearfulness. So she was, it's like what, spiritual bypassing, so you kind of want to avoid the things that you don't want to look at. Oh, I'm not going to look, and I'm just going to be, but it turns out she had to have this surgery. It was part of the healing of her womb. And once she had that surgery, she was able to conceive. So yeah, there's magic in all this, and then there's also practical steps that can be a part of the magic.
Absolutely. And in my mum's case, she was so fearful of the whole COVID narrative, like it's interesting because they got it at both sides, like in Australia and, pushing the mandate. We couldn't cross borders if we weren't vaccinated. We couldn't visit our dying relatives in the hospital. We couldn't attend funerals. We couldn't, there was a lot of oppression in Australia. And my mum was so terrified of going to the doctor because she thought they were going to force vaccinate her. That was why she didn't go. She was so frightened of a forced vaccination against her will. They can't force you against your will, but she wasn't able to hold herself in her sovereignty. So instead, she just chose not to look, right? And put it off as ascension. So as a new earth mama, right, you are being called upon to not do that, to really, really dig within and go, okay, is it ascension symptoms, or do I need some blood work? Really feel into what it is, and is it fear or an open heart leading the way?
Absolutely. And if you have to have anything done, you just bring the higher consciousness into that. It is still magic. Just bring the magic into it. It doesn't have to be, oh, well, this is totally the old way and this is totally the new way. No, you bring the new way into the old way. You bring your light into the old ways, and that makes it light as well.
For example, a lot of people think, on the consciousness spiritual world, that IVF is bad. I have a lot of sessions with women who believe IVF is bad, which is why I created a program called IVF Made Magical. It's where science and magic unite.
Yeah.
To bring in your baby. And some babies are choosing to be conceived this way. They absolutely are.
And yeah, absolutely. And the same can be said for C-section. A lot of women are afraid of having cesareans, even if that's what their body needs. And I used to be a birth judger, way back in the beginning. Oh yeah. And then I started doing readings and seeing that, oh my God, this is also a high path. If that's how the baby is choosing to be born. Sometimes it's a gentler birth for the baby, not have to go through all that squeezing and constriction. Sometimes it's a gentler birth, but you can bring the magic and bring the higher consciousness into the C-section. It can still be something so filled with light. So again, our products are not our work. It's not a product, it's work, it's a journey. It's not telling you do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. It's saying you're doing everything right, and this is how you bring the magic to all of it.
Mm. Yeah, it's really just getting rid of the dogma in every single area. You know, the most highest consciousness path for a birth may in fact be a cesarean and not a home birth where you're free birthing, right? It's
Exactly.
what's the highest path for you and your baby.
Exactly.
Forget about the noise of what everyone else is saying.
And it might be part of your mission as a new earth mama to bring the light into a C-section. You know, it's something that has been heavily traumatized, um, and, you know, maybe even ridiculed in some circles, but maybe it's your job to bring that higher consciousness to the C-section. It's whatever. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. I'm glad I remembered to say this. Wherever our struggles are, that's actually where our strength is. Because we came into this with a soul contract of, okay, I'm going to tackle this issue and I'm going to tackle this issue. We don't tackle these issues because we're weak in those places. We tackle those issues because that is where we're strongest. So if you're having trouble with your biology and your fertility, it means that is an area that you are really strong. You are not going to get so deep into it that you forget your strength. So, and that's not just with trying to conceive, that's with everywhere. If you're having issues in abundance, that's because that's where you're really strong. And you came to bring the light into lack or poverty consciousness to elevate it. So that's part of the New Earth Mama mission too. Wherever you're struggling, wherever you think you're weak, realize that is actually where you are strongest because you chose to overcome it, to bring the light into it and help others overcome in those areas as well. Amen, sister.
My God, I feel like we could keep on talking forever and ever, but that's probably enough for today. But you know where to find me, Surf the Wild Woman on Instagram, Quantum Conception on TikTok if you are in Australia, and Quantum Star Babies if you are in the United States. And you can find our program, Quantum Conception 21-Day Jumpstart to Meet Your Baby, plus lots of goodies. I've also got Quantum Conception, the Embodiment, Kate's book, What All Spirit Babies Want Their Mamas to Know, and the Divine Mother Activation, all available for you. And then also my app, Star Babies, where there's a beautiful community inside the app. Thank you for listening today. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Bye.